Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, the images now are coming in all over the world at what is now happening in Israel, in Gaza, in the West Bank. They are singing, they are dancing, tears of joy, tears streaming down their cheeks, whether it be in the Gaza Strip, whether it be in Ramallah, in the West Bank. Palestinians are dancing and celebrating. Israelis in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, all across Israel are now celebrating, partying, crying out of joy, and singing the praises of Donald J. Trump. In fact, there is now a chant that you hear in unison. Never before has one man unified both Israelis and Arabs, Jews and Palestinians, the way Donald J. Trump now has. They are chanting, "The peace president, the peace president, the peace president." And so, as I speak to you now, in this historic moment, President Donald J. Trump is about to address the Israeli Knesset, their parliament. It will be an address that will be carried live, not just in Israel, but across the entire Middle East and the world. He has now touched down in Israel, while just 6 to 8 hours ago, the first group of Israeli hostages were delivered back to the Israelis. And now word has been given that all 20 living Israeli hostages, all of the living Israeli hostages are now back in Israel. They have been given back to the Israeli military, and now they are reuniting with their families. Palestinians now are watching many of their political prisoners being released into the West Bank, into Gaza. As I speak to you now, there is a ceasefire that has taken hold. Humanitarian aid is now pouring into Gaza. Food, tents, fresh fruit, medicine, emergency humanitarian supplies. Everything now is pouring in. The Gazans, many of them were starving, are thanking President Trump, saying that he has literally saved countless lives. And so, as all of this takes place, President Trump now will address the Israeli Knesset, and then later he will go to Egypt for an historic peace summit in which he will meet with the leader of Egypt, with other Arab leaders, Muslim leaders. Netanyahu will be joining him, in which they will then forge ahead for the second phase of Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. And I want you to listen now to President Trump on Air Force One as he was flying towards Israel. And he is now making it very clear to everybody, to both the Muslims and the Israelis, this is not some temporary ceasefire. The war is over. The war must end, and the rebuilding and reconstruction now must begin. As President Trump wrote when he landed and then went to the Knesset, he signed a book, and he said, "A great and beautiful day. It is now a new beginning." Listen now to President Trump answering a reporter who said Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu over the weekend said that he's very happy the hostages are coming home. He's very happy there's a ceasefire, but he's warning Israelis this war may not be over. Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 2B, Mike.
President Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, has not gone so far as to say the war is over. In your view, is the war between Israel and Hamas over?
The war is over. The war is over, okay? Do you understand that?
So it's over. And he reemphasized that he has told Bibi, he has told the Palestinians, he has told all of the key leaders in the Middle East, the leaders of Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all of them, that from this point forward, no one is going to pull back. No one is going to blow the peace process. This is now the end. There will now be a new Gaza Strip. I'll get to this a little bit later in the show. But that now the United Nations and many wealthy Arab Gulf countries, these Gulf sheiks, have now committed billions and billions of dollars to the rebuilding and reconstruction of Gaza. As he puts it, I want there now to be a Palestinian state that will live in peaceful coexistence with Israel, backed by the entire international community. Listen now to Trump saying everybody behaves and everybody now knows their place. I've told them we're going to do peace whether you like it or not. Roll cut to see a mic.
I think people are going to behave. Everybody knows their place. It's going to be great for everybody. It's going to be great for the surrounding countries. Arab, Muslim, all of them. It's going to be great for Israel. Everybody is happy. And I think it's going to stay that way.
Okay. Let me just make a couple of points, because this is clearly now a very historic day, and we're living through a very historic moment. Now, number one, what is very clear, and now there's been media report after media report after media report confirming this. The only reason why Hamas is now essentially signing the terms of their surrender. Hamas now is signing essentially a defeat. That's what they're signing. They've agreed, we'll see if they implement it, but they have agreed to now give up power in Gaza and to disarm. And the reason why, and almost every media outlet that has now looked into it, say that the key player was the unconventional leadership of Donald J. Trump. And in particular, here is what Trump did. Trump realized that the Hamas's biggest backer was Qatar. Qatar. And so what he did is he went to the Qataris and essentially made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Trump told them he would give them, Qatar, a NATO-like security guarantee. So the United States now is militarily committed to the defense of Qatar, and that they would continue to allow American troops to have a major base in Qatar in exchange now for protecting the entire Qatari borders and the Qatari regime. In exchange for this, the United States would help build up Qatar's military, help train their forces, and essentially now allow Qatar to be able to become a major player in the Middle East with a powerful military and its country now backed by the United States. But in return, he said, you've got to cut Hamas off at the knees. Financially, cut off all of your funding. Military, all of your support. Diplomatically, all of your support. In other words, you've got to cut off Hamas completely. And so, having lost their major backer, combined with the successive military defeats on the battlefield, with their leadership now decapitated, their military, their fighters, their tunnel infrastructure smashed and decimated, Hamas essentially had no choice but to sign these terms of surrender. And on top of all of this, what has now made everything possible is the fact that Trump gave Netanyahu the green light over the last 9 to 10 months to take out Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. In other words, He has now put in the conditions for a decisive victory for the West, for Israel, for the United States, and now with Hamas finally defeated, now we can build a new future in Gaza, in the Middle East. And the question now I have, especially for all the pro-Palestinian leftists out there, for all of those who've been blocking traffic and rioting on campus and making life miserable for all of us, you claimed for 2 years you wanted the war to end. The war is now over. Peace has broken out. Trump now has become the best friend the Palestinians have ever had. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Love to take calls as early as possible on this. Clearly an historic day. There is no question now. President Trump now has now been given the title, the Peace President, by the Israelis, by the Palestinians, by the Arabs, by the Jews. This is something unprecedented. This has never happened before in history. And so he is now in Israel. He is about to address the Knesset. He will then go later to Egypt for an historic peace summit with not just the president of Egypt, but many leaders of the Arab world. Benjamin Netanyahu will be accompanying him. And listen now to President Trump. Every single Israeli hostage that's living, every living Israeli hostage, all 20, are now home. This has torn away at the soul of Israeli society for the last 2 years. I cannot overstate enough what this means to the people of Israel. And by the way, everywhere you go, I don't care if it's Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, small towns, big cities, you see Trump's picture everywhere. Everywhere. The American flag, everywhere. They are now calling Trump the King of Israel for what he has now done. The Palestinians are now saying they want to call him the father of an independent Palestinian state. So what you're seeing now is something unbelievable, remarkable, unprecedented. And as I said at the end of my opening monologue, and it bears repeating, look how this war in Gaza over the last 2 years has roiled our country, our politics. Look what it's done on college campuses. The explosion in pro-Hamas anti-Semitism. The hatred for Jews that has erupted here in the United States, and how much it's impacted us. And so the very same leftists who were chanting peace in Palestine, who were calling for an end to the war, in protest after protest, in riot after riot, as they blocked traffic, as they shut down college campuses, as you had prominent Democrat after prominent Democrat vilify Trump, vilify Netanyahu, vilify Israel, suddenly now, crickets. Crickets. You wanted peace? Trump has now delivered an historic ceasefire. You wanted a roadmap to Palestinian independence and a Palestinian state? Trump has now given it to you. You wanted peace across the Middle East. You now have it. Trump has given it to you on a silver platter. And yet notice, Hollywood is silent. The Democrats are silent. The pro-Palestinians, the protesters, are silent. Don't you want peace? He's given you what you wanted. And still, you're not happy. And still, you can't find it within yourself to say, good job. We agree with you. Thank you, Mr. President. You did it. which just goes to show you, as I've been saying the whole time, they were never interested in peace or in truly the welfare of Palestinians. They are Jew-hating anti-Semites who backed Hamas because they wanted Hamas to win the war, because they wanted to annihilate and exterminate Israel and the Jews. They don't want a peaceful solution to the problem. They don't want a peaceful Palestinian state living side by side with a peaceful Israeli state. They don't want peaceful coexistence. They want Israel and the Jews gone. Gone. Through blood and violence. And now Trump has finally exposed them. Now, listen to Trump saying a lot of work now lies ahead. He says the ceasefire is going to hold. And he says before we can even start building the hotels, the cafes, the restaurants, in other words, really build up Gaza into the Riviera of the Mediterranean. We have to do massive reconstruction, massive rebuilding. It is a demolition site. And the world stands ready now to rebuild Gaza right in front of our eyes. Roll cut 3, Mike. Okay, so we've got a bit of a technical issue, technological problems. Okay, I'm going to play it on the other side. Then I want to take your calls. 617-266-6868. In essence, Trump says before the developers can go in and, really build up Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, he says you're going to have to remove a lot of the structures that have been broken or smashed or in ruins because of the war. You're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. He says it's going to take a massive construction effort, but he says he's committed to it. Okay, history is unfolding right in front of our very eyes. Every single living Israeli hostage has now been released. They are back in Israel. There is absolute jubilation. They are singing, they are dancing, they are crying, tears of joy. Celebrations have erupted all over that country. In the Palestinian territories, they are celebrating and dancing as well. Humanitarian aid now is pouring in. Food, fruits, meat, vegetables, cooking oil, tents, you name it, medical supplies, medicines. A ceasefire has now taken hold. Israeli forces now have withdrawn to agreed upon lines. And now there is a clear roadmap for an independent Palestinian state. Trump is later now, first he will be addressing the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. Then he is off to Egypt, where he will be meeting not just with the leader of Egypt, the president, but many Arab leaders will be joining him to congratulate him. Prime Minister Netanyahu will be joining him, and they will then immediately start talking about implementing phase 2 of Trump's 20-point peace plan. Listen now to President Trump saying at the heart and soul of his peace plan is the reconstruction and the rebuilding of the entire Gaza Strip. This is him on Air Force One flying towards Israel just hours ago. Roll cut 3, Mike.
The ceasefire does hold. How long until we get to the part of the 20-point peace plan where developers can go in and make Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East?
Well, I don't know about the Riviera for a while, because you take a look at what you have. You have to get people taken care of first. But it's going to start really essentially immediately. I mean, they're going to have to start by removing a lot of the structures that you see that are down to the ground. I mean, it's blasted. This is like a demolition site. Almost the entire site is. So you have to get rid of what you have there. You have structures that are very dangerous. They're falling down. If they haven't fallen, they're going to fall down of their own volition. So that process, Peter, is going to start pretty much immediately in that way.
So basically, I'm like within 24 to 48 hours, they want to bring in cranes, bulldozers, construction equipment, and they want to start bulldozing these ruined, shattered buildings and start scooping up the rubble and start clearing out all of the debris, all of the damage. And he wants to move very quickly to start billions of dollars in reconstruction money to pour in, to start rehabilitating, reconstructing, and rebuilding Gaza. And that's why the Palestinians realize they are also now on the cusp of a new beginning. Now, another point I want to make very clear is when you go to the Palestinian territories, what is crystal clear now, Hamas is reviled. Hamas is reviled and hated. Most Palestinians, unlike the radical leftists here, the blind, Jew-hating, anti-Semitic leftists, they say Hamas started the war. Hamas was responsible for the war. They say this over and over and over again. They launched a war they couldn't win, and then they used Palestinians as human shields to conduct their criminal guerrilla campaign. And so Hamas has lost all support on the Arab street, all support in the Palestinian territories, and that's why the Palestinians themselves want Hamas to be disbanded, to be out of power, and to be disarmed. So truly now, what you're seeing now is the consequences of October 7th. Hamas started the war. Israel has won the war. Listen now to President Trump saying his prediction is that this historic 20-point plan, this ceasefire, and soon a peace deal, he says, has a real chance of working, and it will be something that hasn't been able to be done in literally centuries. Roll cut 3A, Mike.
Over the years, it'll look very good. It'll be, it's got the first chance it's had in centuries of being peaceful. It's always been a very, very strange area. It's always been loaded up with problems, religious problems, problems like no other place probably in the world. And I think it's going to now, it's going to normalize. All you can say, if it normalizes, that would be fantastic.
Bingo. Bingo. I mean, that's the key. That's the key. And so an exhaustion has now set in among the Palestinians in terms of, do we want to continue to fight and fight and fight? And even many Arab states, many Muslim states now realize we have to go forward. We cannot continue down this road. And so Trump now is looking to capitalize on this historic moment in order to deliver a lasting, durable peace. Let me just play a very important cut. Listen now to Trump. He's asked point blank, what's harder? Because as you know, where the shutdown is still on. If anything, the government shutdown is getting worse. It's deepening. It's intensifying. The Democrats are digging in their heels. And there's a lot of news on that front I'm going to be discussing as well. In fact, layoffs now are beginning. Mass layoffs, federal agencies. You now have bureaucrats, many of them being fired, others being laid off or furloughed. And it's hundreds of thousands, and it's picking up and picking up and picking up. So they're now, both sides are now entrenched, and this may go on now for at least 3-4 more weeks. He's asked, what's harder? Delivering peace in the Middle East, negotiating a peace deal, or negotiating with the Democrats to end the shutdown? Roll cut 2, Mike.
President Trump, what's harder? Peace in the Middle East or ending a government shutdown?
Well, I think the hardest is this. This has been going on for 3,000 years. The shutdown's only been for 10 days. So I think the shutdown, it's gotten to be almost customary, but we're taking care of it. We've got the military paid in full, and we're doing a lot of things. We're ending some programs that we don't want. They happen to be Democrat-sponsored programs, but we're ending some programs that we never wanted, and we're probably not going to allow them to come back. I think they made a mistake. I think they made a big mistake. This is really a Schumer shutdown because he's become sort of irrelevant, and he wants to make himself relevant again.
So just like Hamas made a huge mistake on October 7th, 2023, Trump is now saying Schumer is making a huge mistake by forcing this government shutdown, that this is going to blow up in the Democrats' face the way October 7th has blown up in Hamas's face. So I want to ask you a double-barreled question on this wonderful Columbus Day. And yes, Trump has signed the proclamation. It is now Columbus Day again. And as he said, Italian Americans should reclaim pride in this day because Christopher Columbus was a great Italian. And yes, he discovered the Americas. So on this historic Columbus Day, let me ask all of you, this great audience, double-barreled question. What do you make now of this historic ceasefire and the return of all living hostages in Israel? Is Trump now the peace president? And what are you more concerned about? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, historic, no question about it, historic developments now taking place in the Middle East, in Israel, in the West Bank, in Gaza. Trump now is there addressing the Knesset. He is then going to fly off to Egypt to continue to implement his broad, comprehensive peace plan. My question to you, is Trump now, will he be known as the peace president? And are you happy with his foreign policy in the Middle East? 617-266-6868. Aaron in Idaho. Thanks for holding, Aaron, and welcome.
3 points I want to make, Jeff. First of all, I'm surprised that you're surprised that Trump did not win the Nobel Prize. Those libs at the Nobel Prize Committee, they gave it to Jimmy Carter, they gave it to the dear leader, and they gave it to Al Gore over a woman who rescued Jewish children from the Holocaust. She was nominated, but they said, blank you, we're going to give it to Al Gore over his movie An Inconvenient Truth. So that's my first point. The other thing I want to say is about all these libs mad about Palestine. It was never about Palestine, Jeff. It was always about being against Western civilization. Vladimir Lenin called them the useful idiots. Hezbollah did a video a year ago where they told, quote-unquote, Queers for Palestine, we don't want to be friends with you. We don't like you. We don't like your lifestyle. In one ear, out the other. Look, here's the deal. Why are the liberals so quiet, even though this is peace? Because it's Trump who did it. I have a long memory. 20 years ago, when Bush was president, anti-war protests were massive, huge. When the dear leader, Obama, bombed Libya and Yemen. I remember this. 15 years ago, Code Pink did a massive anti-war rally in San Francisco. Only 30 people showed up. And the leader of Code Pink said, where is everybody? Where are the Democrats? And the Democrats said, oh, it was never at the war. We were just against Bush. So if the bomb had an elephant on it, it was a bad bomb. But if the bomb had a donkey on it, it was a good bomb. Now it's vice versa. Now that the peace deal has Trump on it, it's a bad peace deal. And now it's the Democrats who said that if some alternate universe Harris is president, we'd be going to war with Russia. So it's amazing how things have flip-flopped in the last 20 years. And my third and final point today is Columbus Day. And again, the left, wants to get rid of it, abolish it, because they want to apologize for Western civilization. Now, I will say this. I have no problemo. Acknowledge, too. The Navajo, they were the key reason, the wind talkers, they saved us in World War II from the Japanese. The Native Americans are some of the most decorated war veterans of all time. 80% of Native Americans say they love America and that they have no problem with the Redskins name. It's people like your senator who say, I'm really Indian, but I hate America because what they did to my ancestors. You're a liar. The real Native Americans, I'm not making this up, Jeff. I go to casinos all the time. There's a Native American casino not too far away from here, and I went there for the 4th of July 10 years. All of the old Native Americans, all of them, Vietnam veteran uniforms, Korean War veteran uniforms, Gulf War veteran uniforms. The kids were all dressed up as Indians, and half of them were half white. So, yes, today's Columbus Day, but you want to acknowledge Native Americans love America, too. Just want to point that out.
Oh, Aaron, dynamite call. Really, what a way to start the show. Aaron, happy Columbus Day, and thank you very much for that call. Look, a lot to chew on there. You're completely right about Native American Indians. You're completely right. Many of them have served in war after war after war. By the way, they love the term Redskins. They love it for the Washington Redskins because it has nothing to do with the actual color of their skin. That's a lie invented by these white liberal activists. It regards the war paint that they would put on, making their skin even redder with the war paint. You know, red, like that's why they mean to call them Redskins. It's the war paint, the red war paint. And they were very proud of that because they were ferocious in battle and very brave in battle, which they were. So you're absolutely correct. Look, I am happy that Columbus Day is back. To me, it should never, ever have been, the name should never have been taken away. I believe we should all be very proud of Christopher Columbus, Italian Americans especially. Yes, he came here on behalf of the Spanish government in 1492, but he was Italian. Christopher Columbus was an Italian. And look, to me, I've said this many times. He was one of the greatest explorers in the history of the world. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's beyond dispute. And no Christopher Columbus, no America. It's really that simple. So how can he not be celebrated as one of the greatest historical figures in the history of Western civilization? And by the way, no Christopher Columbus, no Mexico, no Latin America. I'm just saying to everybody who's a Latino out there, and of course you should be very proud to be Latino, okay? But this unique heritage of being Spanish, with some mixture of native, South American or Central American or Mexican, Mexico, Mexican, Native American, Indian, this fusion, that's only because of Christopher Columbus. So there's no Latin America without Christopher Columbus. There's no United States of America without Christopher Columbus. And I remember growing up, I know I grew up in Canada, but many of my Italian friends, Italian Canadians, were so proud that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. And in the United States, this was one of the biggest days of the year for Italian Americans. It was sort of like their version of St. Patty's Day. Yes, they waved the Italian flag, but they waved the American flag even more, saying in other words, it was a day to commemorate their achievements in America, their contributions to America and the American melting pot. And instead, for decades now, the left, especially in campuses, universities, pop culture, and education, have vilified and villainized Christopher Columbus. Because, and Aaron is right, because ultimately they're at war with Western civilization. We should be very proud of Christopher Columbus. We should be very proud that he discovered the Americas. We should be very proud of Western society, Western culture, Western civilization, everything that it's achieved and accomplished. I'm sorry. It is the greatest civilization in the history of the world. Does it have flaws? Of course. Which culture, which civilization doesn't? Every human being has flaws, with the exception of Jesus. So, big deal. A saint is a former sinner who's led an exemplary life. Even saints have flaws. Who cares? That's not the point. It's not that they have flaws. It's the great things that they did. To me, that's the same thing with America. To say, oh, nitpick here, nitpick there. Oh, I'm like, yeah, every country has that. But look at what they achieved. Look at what we achieved. That's the difference. So anyway, look, I'm happy it's Christopher Columbus Day. I'm very happy there's now a ceasefire. I'm very happy the Israeli hostages are coming home. To me, this is a happy day. This is truly a happy day. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Oh, and by the way, just very quickly on that, the Nobel Peace Prize. The woman that won it has captured the heart of MAGA. Maria Machado. In fact, I was so moved by what she did after she got and I'll get to this in a second, but I was so moved by what she did that I was thinking of devoting the opening monologue of today's show to her. But instead, you're seeing there's no other way to put it, world historical pictures and images taking place in Israel, in Gaza, in the Palestinian territories, across the entire Middle East. It's transformative. What's happening now is truly transformative. So, I had to go with the biggest story in the world. But if you didn't catch it, what the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, she is an opponent of Maduro, that brutal communist dictator. And she is desperately fighting for democracy and human rights in her country. She's one of the leading dissidents. She's an incredibly brave, patriotic woman, okay, a Venezuelan patriot. When she got the Nobel Peace Prize, she literally dedicated it to President Trump. It's something, it's almost never been done before, where she said, I'm accepting this, but in honor of President Trump. And she said it for two reasons. One, she said he really should have won this award. I'm very grateful for recognizing my hard work in Venezuela and the ferocious, barbaric dictatorship that we're fighting here. But she said clearly Trump is the peace president. And what he has now done in the Middle East surpasses anything else in the world today. And he rightfully should have won this. And then, so she said, I accept it in his honor and in his name. Meaning, Mr. President, this is really yours. It's not mine. And then she did something else. She said, do you know why we have Maduro on the ropes? Do you know why millions and millions of freedom-loving Venezuelans who despise this Castro-like dictatorship, do you know why we now finally have hope? Because of President Trump. Because Trump is putting the squeeze on this regime. Trump is going after the drug cartels. Trump is going after and blowing up these boats that Maduro is sending out to ship and traffic fentanyl and cocaine into our country. And so Trump now is putting so much pressure on the Maduro regime, and he's isolated it to such an extent, and now giving covert support to the pro-democracy, pro-freedom forces in Venezuela, that she said, we actually now have a chance of toppling this regime from inside and literally establishing freedom and democracy in Venezuela. And she said there's only one man that is responsible for inspiring us to rise up against the Maduro dictatorship, that is President Donald J. Trump. So she said, for two reasons, this Nobel Peace Prize, this is for you, Mr. President. This is an incredibly great, courageous woman. This is a woman that I truly now, I'm telling you, she has earned my respect. And I know you can't see me because I'm behind the microphone, but I'm putting my hand on my heart and, like pumping it or tapping it on my heart, on my chest several times, as in, respect. All respect to you. Maduro is gunning for her. He's put a target on her back. He wants her dead. He's given the order to his brutal security services to track her down and kill her. She's in hiding. She's in an underground location in Venezuela. She refuses to leave, saying she will not abandon her people. And she is there, God willing, one day, just like Hamas was overthrown in Gaza, Maduro will be overthrown in Venezuela, and I hope to God she is the next president of Venezuela in a post-communist, free, democratic Venezuela. And I hope Trump invites her to the White House. I truly do. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's all on the table. I want to hear from you. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in Pittsburgh. Dave, great to hear from you. Happy Columbus Day. And what do you make of everything that's
why I'm talking to you, as fate would have it. Jeff, I love muscle cars, buddy. I'm a muscle car aficionado. I just don't want to get killed by one with tinted windows, Jeff. I'm telling you. Ay, ay, ay. I sound like my grandmother and you, buddy, saying ay, ay, ay. But Jeff, let me tell you something. On Hamas, I don't trust them, buddy. I'm sorry. I don't trust Hamas as far as I could throw them into the Mediterranean Sea, bro, from Gaza or Bethlehem or whatever you want to call it. And as far as this chick winning this young lady winning it, Venezuela, Miss Machado, I was a little upset Trump didn't get it Friday morning. I was fit to be pissed, Jeff, because of these Democrats with this freaking government shutdown. They say shutdown in Pittsburgh. They don't know how to talk around here. But that's all right. I love them anyway. But, Jeff, I'm telling you, buddy, these Democrats, it's their fault. And this Machado lady that dedicated to Trump, they could just rename it the Donald Trump Peace Award. You know what I mean, buddy? Like the Rod Carew batting title in the American League and Tony Gwynn in the National League. They renamed the batting titles. They should have named it the Kirby Puckett, but that's another argument, buddy. But, Jeff, no, seriously, I don't trust Hamas as far as I could throw them.
Interesting. Dave, I'm just curious. Do you think Trump is going to get any credit? I know the Democrats, the leadership will never give him the credit that he's due. The media would rather commit suicide than give him the credit that he's due. But I'm talking about your average rank and file Democrat. You know, you're a liberal on the street, you're a Democrat on the street. Are they going to look at this and say, geez, that's a miracle what he's accomplished, or at least it's a great thing. The hostages are coming home. You can't deny that. There is, at least for now, a ceasefire. Aid is pouring in. Children are being fed. Literally, they're being fed. Starving children are literally being fed. And there's the talk now of an independent Palestinian state, a real Palestinian state. Are they going to say to themselves, we were wrong? Maybe this guy isn't Hitler? I mean, Hitler wouldn't save the Jews. Hitler wouldn't go to the Knesset and give a speech. Hitler, in other words, we've painted this man into the boogeyman. And it's obvious, Hitler was not a peacemaker. Hitler was not a defender of the Jews. Hitler did not like ceasefires. Hitler did not like sending in humanitarian aid and feeding starving children and elderly and people who are hungry. That wasn't Hitler's style. Do you think now many of these Democrats are going to say, I got to give Trump credit? In other words, will he get some support out of this? Or do you think they will hate him and hate him and hate him, no matter what?
Jeff, I think that the far left, the AOC and the summer leaves, like my congresswoman, will hate his guys. Jeff, he could walk on top of the water like my Lord and Savior, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and they'll still figure out a way how to, complain about it. But now then you got the Democratic Party that's like my Senator, John Fetterman, who I'm proudly to say him along and Dave McCormick, my Republican senator, my junior senator, Dave McCormick, both came out in a press release yesterday and praised President Trump. You're going to have the Democrats like the John Fettermans, the moderate Democrats like your Tip O'Neills and, Marty Meehan's. I hate to say that name because I think he just gone far left, Jeff, the UMass president, if I'm not, or the chancellor. I think that they're going to give him credit, but the Schumer Democrats and the AOC and Summer Lee Democrats, Jeff, and the dumb broad squad, as I call them, no, they're never going to give Trump credit no matter what he does. But the John Fetterman Democrats will. The moderate Reagan Trump Democrats, buddy.
Interesting. Dave, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Excuse me. First of all, Jeff, what really concerns me is the left-wing communists in the Democratic Party. They are controlling this shutdown, and they don't care how much damage they do to the United States, okay? Now, as far as the Middle East is concerned, I'm happy with what's happening right now, but I won't believe it until I see it in action. That's when I'll believe that there'll really be peace in that area of the world. You talk about Venezuela. Many Italians after World War II, left Italy to find work in other places. Many of them went to Venezuela. Back in the 50s, that was a very prosperous country. Many of them went back to Italy with money and bought businesses and everything else. So it is a shame. Venezuela once was not what it is today. And hopefully for the Venezuelan people that the country can come back to what it was in the 50s and in the 60s, Jeff, So I'm hopeful for that. And there's no question, President Trump is the peace president. He's proven it over and over and over again. And it also proves that every moron that's called him Hitler and repeated that propaganda, okay, it is showing how stupid, politically stupid that you are. And, Jeff, I'm sorry to say this, okay, there may be some converts, but the majority of Massachusetts voters will remain politically stupid, no matter what Trump does.
Russ, I wish I could disagree with you. I really do, but I can't. I can't, because you're right. You're right. I'm telling you, you're right. All of these moonbats with their Palestinian flags and, free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine. Well, here it is. The war is over. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, history in the making. All Israeli hostages, living hostages, have now been returned. There are still 28 dead hostages. It will take time to find their remains, but they have to be returned to the families, the grieving families, so they can be given a proper burial. But the 20 living hostages are in Israel. They are back with their families. It is a national bar mitzvah. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It is a national party that is now erupting in that country. By the way, and it's not just Israel. They are dancing in the streets in Gaza. They are dancing in the streets in the West Bank. Many of these Palestinian prisoners have been released in exchange. Furthermore, massive humanitarian aid now is pouring in food, medicines, tents, hospital supplies, medical supplies, and of course, the promise now of an independent Palestinian state should Hamas fully disband and disarm. Truly now something remarkable, unprecedented, historic is taking place. President Trump now is addressing the Israeli nation and really the entire region and the world. In the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, listen now. This is Benjamin Netanyahu introducing Trump in the Israeli Knesset. He is speaking in Hebrew with an English translation. And he tells everyone there, the hostages have finally come home. Roll cut 101, Mike.
When we were informed today, an hour ago, that all our live hostages returned back to us. What excitement.
And then he personally thanked President Trump in Hebrew with an English translation, saying none of this could have happened without the pivotal, decisive influence and help of Donald J. Trump. Roll cut 101A, a mic.
How long we've waited for this moment, and we have committed to return everyone. And I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the whole nation. Thank you, Mr. President, President Trump. Thank you, Mr. President.
And to really hit the point home, he then went from Hebrew to English. And in English, he said what every Israeli is saying on the street and what most Jewish people who are sane are saying around the world. Roll cut 102C, Mike.
My friends, this is only a partial list, but it's enough to affirm what I've said time and again. Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
There's Hitler for you. I mean, it just shows you how insane these leftists are. Yep, there's Hitler. They're praising him in the Knesset. Adolf, we love you. No one's been a better friend to the Jews than you, Adolf. And it's beyond Trump derangement syndrome. Really, it's Trump insanity syndrome. You're so disconnected from reality, people are laughing at you. That's now what's happening with the Democrats and with the left. And look, whether it's supporting Israel in its decisive defeat of Hamas, whether it's recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, whether it's backing Israel and then participating directly in breaking the back of Iran's nuclear weapons program. I could go on and on and on. No stronger ally, no stronger friend of Israel has ever existed than Donald J. Trump. In fact, without Trump, let me be crystal clear, Israel would be in deep, deep, deep trouble, fighting a four-front war, surrounded by enemies, and maybe not even existing as we speak today. So, I want to ask all of you, he is now being known not just in Israel, but in Palestine, in the Palestinian territories, across the Middle East, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, across the entire European Union, in Britain, in Australia, in New Zealand, around the world. They are now calling him the Peace President. The Peace President. My question to you, and it's a double-barreled question. A, is he the peace president? Do you agree? Do you agree? And B, and I know this is going to seem a bit of a curveball, but I have to ask you, did you vote for a peace president? In other words, is he spending, if anything, too much time on foreign affairs? Too much time on peace deals around the world? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. I want to read to all of you a text, and the reason why I'm reading it is I'm not saying it's a majority view among Kuhner country. It's not. Most of you are celebrating what's happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Israel, the hostages coming home, a ceasefire, the war ending, at least for now, and the prospects of a real durable peace. However, I would say a substantial minority, at least a third to 40%. I'm not saying you're unhappy. I mean, you don't want people dying and the war to continue. But many of you feel, let me summarize it this way. I'll read you the text, but before I do, many of you feel that Trump is spending too much time on foreign affairs, too much time on making deals abroad, and not enough on domestic issues. This is the way I would sort of characterize what I'm hearing from at least a chunk of you out there. And so this is from 703. Jeff, anybody with a heart is happy to see these hostages come home and the war in Gaza to finally come to an end. And yes, you're right. Trump does deserve credit, and he should have won the Nobel Peace Prize. But with all due respect, Jeff, to you and to Trump, and I voted for Trump 3 times, what does this have to do with me and my life? My bills are still way too high. The cost of groceries has not gone down. Inflation is stubborn. Mass deportations are slow. We're in the middle of a government shutdown. Our soldiers, Jeff, our soldiers are not going to get paid. Yet Congress will get paid. People are now losing their jobs. Military members are now being denied health care coverage because of this shutdown. I did not vote for peace in Ukraine, or for peace between Serbia and Kosovo, or for peace in Rwanda, or, excuse me, Jeff, for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. I voted for America first. And I'm sorry, but my pocketbook is not getting any better. Interesting. So, and that's what I mean. This is a good text that sums up what many, encapsulates very well what many of you are emailing me, messaging me. Again, it's a minority view. I'd say it's about 33, 35%, a third. 2/3 of you are happy about what's going on in the Middle East. But I'm noticing now, it's been a while, that you think Trump is too involved. Not that you don't want him to make peace, but that he's too involved in making deals around the world and not focusing enough at home. Now, I'm just curious, do you agree with this criticism of Trump? How are your grocery bills? How are your utility bills? How is your rent, your mortgage, your cost of living? Has it gone down under Trump? Are you happy with the economy as it is under Trump? Do you think he's doing enough when it comes to deporting illegal aliens or fighting crime or arresting deep state criminals? Or, in other words, is Trump fulfilling what you hoped he would do when you elected him? Or do you feel that he's neglecting domestic issues to some extent and focusing too much on foreign affairs? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing all right. You know, there's so much to talk about today, Jeff, so I'll try to make this quick. With regard to Columbus Day, you know, I'm glad it's back. But as someone of Scandinavian heritage, I'm a little upset. You know, my people found it 400 years before he did, but I'll let that go. I'm not asking for my own day, Jeff. Okay? I get it. You guys like your Columbus. It's fine. I'm good with it. But, you know, if someone came to me, Jeff, you know, and they said, we want to have a day to celebrate Native American heritage, and we'd love to have that day, I would say, absolutely. I got no problem with that. I think that would be terrific. It's when they try to wipe out history to make days, that's when it becomes a problem. You know, when they say, well, we got to get rid of Columbus Day then. Well, no, we don't have to. We can still have Columbus Day. We can still celebrate the fact that this guy came to, you know, this land. I mean, that's great. You know, but at the same time, we can still say, yeah, Native Americans were here, and we do celebrate all that they did, you know, and who they were prior to, you know, Columbus coming. Okay, so fine. We can say, great, let's have a Native American Day. Okay, terrific. Now, with regard to Hamas, I really hope that this thing lasts. You know, my problem is there are members of that community, Jeff, that do not want peace. They want death. They want all Jews dead. You know, my fear is this thing goes for, you know, let's say a year. You know, halfway through, out of nowhere, these underground little groups start to pop up in Gaza and start launching rockets and then go back into hiding again. What are you going to do? You know, are they going to go? Are the Palestinian people going to go and round these people up and hand them over? Probably not. They're going to continue to do what they always do, Jeff, which is to launch rockets into Israel, you know, and destabilize. And, you know, as much as I hope that this thing lasts, you know, I'll believe it when I see it, you know, unfortunately. You know, and what drives me nuts is I was reading this weekend, Jeff, Biden's team is already out there trying to take credit for this. You got Anthony Blinken saying, oh, we're so glad that Donald Trump took our framework. You know, the framework that we developed, and that he took our framework, and that's what he used to get this peace deal done. They're already trying to take credit for it, Jeff. These people, they're shameless, they're disgusting slobs, and you're going to see it on the media now, Jeff. They're going to slowly start to weave this in, how this is actually Biden's. You know, all the work that Joe Biden did, that great statesman Joe Biden is actually the one who's really responsible for this, Jeff. It's unbelievable.
Well, no, Mark, you're right. Look, the Democrats are going to try to steal Trump's thunder. The media is going to do what the media does, which is lie and spin it against Trump. Here's the problem they have, Mark. The Israelis are saying Trump was the decisive pivotal force. The Palestinians are saying, without Trump, this deal never would have happened. The Egyptians now, he's going to go and I think in a couple of hours, actually, and meet with the leader of Egypt. They're going to hold a big press conference together. And the leader of Egypt is going to say, no Trump, no ceasefire. No Trump, no peace deal. So the problem is it's going to be directly refuted by everybody who lives there on the ground. So this is the problem the Democrats have. They can lie and lie and lie till the cows come home. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to continue to take your calls, but I just want to play a little bit because it's so pivotal. Really, it's so historical, and Trump knows it, and everybody in the region knows it. So I want to play a little bit now of Donald Trump's speech to the Israeli Knesset. Listen now to President Trump. These are practically his opening words. You could hear a pin drop in the parliament. And there is Trump The hostages have come home. Peace has finally broken out across the entire Gaza Strip. There is now a sense that we are ushering in a new era, a new beginning, maybe even, God willing, a new Middle East. Listen now to President Trump. Roll cut 110, Mike.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And then he told them the Holy Land is finally at peace, and the hostages are home, and the war is over. Roll cut 111, Mike.
After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
And then, and you can see now, Trump he's going for it. The 20-point peace plan, where he's talking about an independent Palestinian state, guaranteed by all these other Arab Muslim countries, their borders, their security, with an international peacekeeping and stabilization force, living side by side, peacefully in coexistence with Israel. He wants now to reshape the Middle East once and for all. Listen now to Trump saying, look, this is not just a ceasefire. I'm not here to just temporarily end the war or to free 20 hostages, great as that is. This must be the beginning of a new era, the dawn of a new Middle East. Roll cut 112, Mike.
This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Let me just play one more and then obviously ask the question. Do you think Trump is right? Will this last? Are we now watching something truly profound and transformational? Is this now potentially the beginning of a new era, the beginning of a new Middle East? Listen now to President Trump saying generations from now, historians will write and recognize that it was this peace plan, it was this moment that now created a new golden age for the Middle East. Roll cut 115, Mike.
Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together.
Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Is President Trump now the peace president? Jerry on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome. Jerry?
Comrade,
go ahead, my friend.
Jeff, happy Columbus Day to you.
Happy Columbus Day, Jerry.
It's a great proclamation by our great president. Jeff, two things that bother me about this whole deal. The 2,000 terrorists that are being let loose, I don't see them conforming to reality. I think they're stuck in the 7th century. And the other thing that bothers me, who brought Tony Blair into this?
You know, that's a great point. He's going to be sitting on that peace board right next to President Trump to oversee this interim government in Gaza, this Palestinian interim government. And I agree with you, Jerry. I'm like, where did this guy come from? He's an arch globalist. He's a leftist. He gave us the disaster that was Iraq. He, in many ways, I think, destroyed Great Britain. He opened up its borders. He was the first one to really open up Britain's borders. And so I'm thinking, why would you put him, of all people, on the board of peace? Now, I don't know if he's just doing this to appease the left and to get the left to buy in to this, this peace deal, this 20-point peace plan. And so it's just more of a figurehead, a fig leaf. But if Tony Blair has any real influence, Jerry, comrade, I'm with you, man. Everything this guy touches, he destroys. Comrade, what say you?
Jeff, he's very dangerous. I think what happened, though, was I think King Charles spoke to the president when he was in England not too long ago. And I think he had a hand in pushing Tony Blair onto this whole scene. He's going to be, Jeff, as you know, he's going to be running around with a keffiyeh on, and he's going to think he's Lawrence of Arabia or something. You know?
Jerry, the sense I get from you is you seem skeptical about this deal. You don't think it's going to last. Am I wrong?
I hope it. I'm hopeful. But 2,000 terrorists running amok, murderers, rapists, people that butchered rabbis and innocent Israelis. No, I don't see these people conforming, Jeff. Maybe it's me.
I hear you, Jerry. I hear you, my friend. Thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Today is a great day for the Jewish people. It's a great day for America. It's a great day for the world. And it's all been done under the leadership of President Trump. But the Democratic Communist left will never, ever give Trump any praise for what he's done, for the lives he has saved and the war that he has ended. Jeff, I want to say thank you to President Trump on behalf of all Italians and all Americans, especially to my friends in the North End and the Italian community. We say grazie for finally coming back to recognize the achievements of Christopher Columbus. So, President Trump was the one who also brought back the term Christmas. When the liberal left wanted to say happy holidays, President Trump was the one who said, no, it's Merry Christmas. So again, it is another victory. But I think what needs to be done now that Hamas has been beaten in Palestine, is we need to get rid of Hamas in America. And that is the liberal left who is tearing this country apart. These liberal judges that have refused to let President Trump send troops into Portland, into Chicago, in other areas of this city, those liberal judges that have put his plans on hold to liberate these cities from crime, he needs to quite possibly invoke that federal law which would allow him to send those troops in. But now that this war has ended, will it stop on the campuses. It was never about the Palestinian war. It was never about Kilmar Brego Garcia. It was never about illegal immigration. These are only reasons or means by which the Democratic Communist Party want to eliminate everything that we have built in this country over the last 250 years. The democracy, the moral character, the value of our nation. This is what they are trying to erase. And just let me say, with this upcoming No Kings protest being led by the disgraceful Robert De Niro, what is this going to be all about? Why is this No King's Day? What is this all about, Jeff? I mean, I would rather live under a king than under the Democratic Communist Party led by Biden or Kamala Harris. That's a fact. And that's what they're trying to achieve here. But in ending, just let me say this, Jeff, is that this will continue because it has never been against Trump. As he had said, it's not me. They're out to get you. They're out to get you, meaning they're out to get the United States of America and what it stands for. And the Democratic Communist Party will not end, their fight will not end until everything this country has built over the last 250 years is erased from history.
Bingo. CJ, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And look, just to take the Palestinian issue, because you're right on every count, but because of what's happening, literally unfolding right in front of our eyes, almost like a miracle. They said they wanted peace. For 2 years, they've erupted on campuses. They've attacked Jewish students, beaten Jewish students, taken over entire buildings, given microphones and voices to some of the most sickening, virulent anti-Semites on the planet. They have blocked traffic. They have made life miserable. They have transformed and hijacked the Democratic Party, all in the name of Palestine, all in the name of the Palestinians. And here President Trump delivers. The war, as they've wanted, is over. Peace in Palestine or in Gaza has now broken out. The Palestinians now have been given a clear path to an independent, sovereign, free Palestinian state. It's there. It's right there. So they even released thousands of terrorists and political prisoners. So you got even that. You have the entire Arab world supporting it, the entire Muslim world supporting it, the Palestinian Authority supporting it. Even most Palestinians in Gaza have turned on Hamas and they're supporting it. And they say nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. So you got everything what you wanted and then some, and you're still not happy. Now that tells you everything you need to know. So it never was about the Palestinians. It's about hatred for this country, frankly, hatred for the Jews, and hatred for the West and Western civilization itself. And they're not going to stop. They use cause after cause as the excuse to continue to attack us ceaselessly and mercilessly. And look, let me just say this. I'm happy Trump is in Israel. I'm happy he's going to Egypt. It's very important. That part of the world has been unstable forever. It has led to terrorism, attacks on our soldiers abroad, and of course here at home. But man, he's got to come back and he's got to deal with this shutdown. Because what the Democrats are now doing, and I'm going to get to this very soon, I promise, with this shutdown is beyond disgusting and beyond sickening. They are willing to risk American lives. They're literally willing to now put Americans' lives, and it's not hyperbole. I'm not being melodramatic for effect. They came out over the weekend. As you know, there is a shortage now of air traffic controllers because of this government shutdown. And so what you're seeing is blackouts at airports, meaning for 3, 4, 5 hours a day because they don't have enough air traffic controllers because there's no funding anymore to pay for their salaries. So airports are being temporarily shut down. This is happening in Los Angeles, in Nashville, in Houston, in Chicago, in all over the country, key hubs. And so they're just shutting them down for 3, 4, 5 hours, which is leading to incredible delays. Now, the Democrats were pressed on this over the weekend, saying, how long do you want this shutdown to go on? How long? 2 more weeks? 3 more weeks? 4 more weeks? This was their answer. Quote, until planes start falling out of the sky, unquote. Until planes start falling out of the sky. That tells you everything you need to know. They don't give a damn one bit about Americans or American citizens or our safety. The planes could practically be falling out of the sky. They don't care. And remember, what is this shutdown all about? What is this shutdown all about? Airports now paralyzed, jeopardizing air safety. You now have members of our military. Trump's going to try to get them paid. He's going to do everything possible. We'll see. But they're even willing now for our military members to literally miss a paycheck or 2 paychecks or 3 paychecks. And by the way, now they've cut off the military, healthcare services to our active vets, our active soldiers, reserved soldiers, and our vets and their families. Now they're being denied health care. And so why are the Democrats enacting this shutdown? It's their shutdown. Why? To give $1.5 trillion in taxpayer-funded health care, free health care for illegal aliens. So our vets, blank you. Our active military service members and the families, blank you. Air traffic controllers, blank you. You name it. Planes can fall out of the sky, blank you. But make sure our illegals get paid. No. Even as they're being deported, no. Free health care for the illegals. That's how radical, how frankly insane and fanatical, how anti-American the Democrats have become. 617-266-6868. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff, this morning?
Very good, Dan. Those images out of the Middle East are they're remarkable. They're truly amazing.
Out of your heritage, and I'm proud that you're so happy today, and I happen to be very proud also. But the people that should be hanging their heads are all of the liars, the liberals who have been consumed by lies. And I can only imagine now that the real truth and the light of truth are coming on to Trump, that he's probably, if not the greatest, the second greatest president that's ever existed. And to give him as much strife, much trouble, his family, his business, invasion on his homes, invasion in the presidency as far as spying. What's happened is, you touched upon it earlier, Jeff. They can't hide behind their lies because the truth is starting to really shine. And what's going to happen here is that Trump is basically going to turn the liberals that are currently rabid right now, because let's face it, he's doing so much right. It cannot be denied. It's gone worldwide. The next thing's going to be the Ukraine. He'll end up solving that. And then what do they say? We're Nazis. We're Hitler. We're Stalin. We're conspirators. We're, Russian spies. I'm so sick of all of that, because now the worm is turned. The real truth and the light has come out, and I'm proud to be an American. I love to be strong. We were very weak when we had Biden and Kamala Harris. In fact, we were going to lose the country. But the strength that Trump has shown, the way that this man has worked, and look at what's happened when you work hard. This is a prime example of what happens in this world when you work hard. And everything, was put up against Trump. His business was threatened. He was threatened. We were threatened. The country was threatened. I mean, at this point, they cannot deny the truth. They cannot deny that this man's not the peace president. And not only that, he's much more than that. And that's going to come to light. And what's going to happen with all these politicians, they're getting their day. You can see their day coming. And what we're going to actually have is a reversal of the transformation of America that's been going on behind our backs and you know, in corners and behind curtains. I'm so sick of that. Our country's now back in the people's hands. It's back as far as being the number one country in the world. And as far as I'm concerned, Trump deserves all the credit in the world. And the woman that gave him the high five.
Yeah, the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, but literally accepted it in his honor. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And he now says, okay, you didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, but we're now going to offer you the most prestigious prize in Israel, and it's never been won by a non-Jew before. But you will be the first non-Jew to win this prestigious Israeli prize. Roll cut 105, a mic.
Mr. President, thank you for all you have done for us. I have submitted your nomination to be the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize, Israel's highest award. As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. But I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend.
Meaning the Nobel Peace Prize. In other words, we want you to get the Israel Prize. You know what? In a way, he's kind of saying wink, wink. It's kind of good you didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize because we want to give you the Israel Prize first. Then you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of love there. I mean, and it's just to show how much they love him. It's the Labor Party. It's the Likud Party. It's coming from the left, the center, the right. It's all across the entire political spectrum in Israel. They truly love Donald Trump. And the families of the hostages in particular cannot thank him enough. So I want to ask all of you, and I think this is one of the most important poll questions, frankly, we have ever done. And I'd love to get as much participation from the audience as possible. Trump, it's historic. No matter what, it's historic. The ceasefire is historic. The deal is historic. The hostages coming home is historic. At least for now, the war ending is historic. But now, this is the key question, okay? The Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Will the Israel-Hamas peace deal survive after President Trump leaves office? In other words, what has he got? 3 more years left in his term, or ballpark 3 years? What is it, 3 years and a couple months? So basically, will it survive till, say, I don't know, January 2029, when a new president, which I hope will be J.D. Vance, will be sworn in? Pretty much, I think most people say, with Trump in office, with his force of personality, with his leadership, with his connections to all the key players in the Middle East, they figure, yeah, it'll last for 3 years. If anybody can make it happen, he'll make it happen. But after Trump, does the peace deal survive in your view? A, yes. B, no. As things stand right now, this is a very cynical Kuhner country this morning. 37% of you say yes. 63% of you say niet, no. So almost two-thirds of you don't believe this is going to be an actually durable, permanent peace. Interesting. Anyway, I want to ask you, will the deal survive after President Trump leaves office? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and yes, I was active on X again last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER, at the Kuhner Report, 617-266-6868. Caroline in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Caroline, and welcome.
Thank you for taking my call, Jeff.
My pleasure.
In terms of Israel, I just had a few questions. I am very much backing President Trump, as always, still, in many of the things that he does. But I just have some questions. I'm always one of those people that I'm always looking things up and wondering what's going on my own, because that's the way you have to think. I don't take anybody else's word anymore. And I do know that the UN voted to stop this war at least 5 or 6 times, and the only vote that said no was the United States. And that's on the Biden administration and the U.S. Trump. The second thing is, since October 7th, 2023, sorry, I'm always nervous when I call, we've given $21.7 billion to Israel to fight this war. $21.7 billion. That's a lot of money, and that money has been spent on weapons, which goes back to the Americans, which really the people that are dancing, that are happy that this war may be over, but has been spent with that much money, are the defense contractors in Reston, Virginia, because they've made a lot of money off of the weapons. And in the meantime, I will say I know of someone who was in contact with somebody in Palestine, and there's no one left in Gaza practically. I mean, these people, some of those people, I've read articles where they've gone back to the First Church of Christ.
Caroline, can you do me a favor? You're raising some extremely important issues. I'm up against a hard break. Okay, let's go right back to Caroline in New Hampshire. Caroline, you were making several points while asking several questions. And then you were making the point that, there's not many Palestinians left in Gaza because of the bombing and the missile strikes over the last 2 years. And then we didn't have a chance for you to complete your point/question. So please pick up where you left off.
Well, the other question is, I found that Americans that are fighting in the Israeli army are getting American military benefits, and I'm not quite sure why that is, but that's a dual citizenship, which it has to do with the law. It's just so much. I think that the point that I want to make, though, I asked a lot of questions, but I'm concerned. So I don't know if this has made the news. I actually don't have a TV anymore. I don't watch TV. But there's something called Turtle Island, and a lot of people know about their children have internationally. And yes, Greta Thunberg is part of this, and I'm not a big fan of hers at all. But these are young people who have gone to Palestine, and they wanted to feed the children. The people of Palestine. And whether you are against it or for it, Israel kidnap them from international waters. I mean, I don't know if you know about this, if you can elaborate more, but they are in prisons in Israel. Is it possible, if this is true, to please get this as part of the plans to free them? That's all I'm asking, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on here and questionable things. But if Americans are in those jails, can they be released as well? How's that?
Well, Caroline, look, a couple of points. You make some very, very interesting points and some very interesting questions. Look, to me, this is the way it's not, let's leave Israel and Palestine out of it, because it's a very emotional topic. People get supercharged over the issue. Any war, let's just take Russia and Ukraine. If you're going to send an aid flotilla or an aid convoy and go in the middle of a war zone, you're asking for trouble. Your instincts may be noble, your instincts may be good and charitable, but the fact of the matter is, to me, if you're going into a war zone where both sides are slaughtering each other, I believe you're being irresponsible and reckless with your life, and frankly, I don't think the government owes you any protection. And that's not just in a war. You know, I've said this for many years. You have Americans who go to North Korea and then they're shocked that they get kidnapped. Or they go to Iran and they're shocked that they're kidnapped. Well, I'm sorry, but, you know, you know the risks that are entailed when you go to places like North Korea or Iran. So they hate Americans, they hate Westerners, they are brutal, authoritarian police states. Chances are you're going to get kidnapped. So what I'm saying is, I'm not defending what Israel did or didn't do. What I'm saying is, look, bombs are flying, missiles are flying, bullets are flying. You know, Israeli troops are being killed. Hamas is being killed. Civilians are being killed. And what? You're just going to show up in an aid flotilla and everybody's going to say, okay, we're going to stop fighting? Like, what I'm saying is, the world doesn't revolve around them. So you take a real chance when you do something like that. And I think you're playing with your life. I think you're playing with the lives of the people around you. And I don't think the government owes you, if you're a tourist in France and you've been held or imprisoned on fake charges or something, that's something different. You know, or like the hostage crisis we had under Iran in 1979, where they storm our embassy, which is supposed to be sovereign territory, and then seize our hostages. That to me was an act of war, frankly. It was a criminal act. But now, 40-some years later, well, you know what the mullahs are. You know what Iran is. You know how they treat Americans and Westerners. You go. I'm sorry, man. You know the chances. Don't come crying to us now that you're in a prison or in some dungeon. So that's why I don't have sympathy for people like that. I'm being honest with you, Caroline. Now, as for the people of Gaza, I feel very bad for them. I truly do feel very bad for them. And one of the things why so many Palestinians are cheering, and you can read their newspapers, you can get their official statements, you can just see the images, is because now humanitarian aid is pouring in, finally, because now the fighting is stopped, at least for now. And so the children are being fed, thank God. Medical assistance is coming in. Hopefully they'll start rebuilding their homes, their apartment buildings, their communities. But look, I think what needs to be said from a Christian point of view, and I am a Christian. In fact, I'm a very devout Catholic. I'm a very devout Christian. I've met countless Palestinian Christians. This is what they've told me. They're not fans of Israel. They're not. They don't like the occupation. They don't like what they call the occupation. They don't like the Israeli government. They don't like a lot of the policies of the Israelis versus the Palestinians. They don't. But the point they wanted to get to me was, they go, we live under Hamas since 2008. We've been living under Hamas. No one has been worse to the Palestinian Christians than the Islamic Hamas. The Islamists under Hamas have destroyed churches, have murdered Christians, have desecrated the Holy Land. The number one enemy of Palestinian Christians has been Muslim Palestinians. They don't just want a Judenfrei Palestine, Jew-free. They want a Christian-free Palestine. So many Christian Palestinians have either been murdered or expelled. And so, look, I've said this publicly many times. The land that Jesus walked on, the holy sites that are holy to Christians, I would much rather have under the control of Israel, which is a pro-Western power, a pro-Western government. It is part of Western civilization, than I would under these Islamist savages. Now, if you're going to have the UN run the place, if you're going to have an international peacekeeping stabilization force, if the world is going to be there and can protect the sites of the Holy Land, that's maybe a different story. Okay, then I'm open to a negotiation. But anywhere in the Muslim world, the Christians of Iraq are being literally annihilated as I speak to you. They go back to the time of Christ. It's one of the most ancient communities, Christian communities in the world. They literally still speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus. The ancient Christian communities of Syria, again, they speak Aramaic, are literally being annihilated. Their houses are being torched and they're being shot and massacred by this new Islamist Al-Qaeda government in Syria. So what I'm saying is, throughout the Middle East, the Christians are being exterminated. In fact, to the point, most people don't know this, but within about the next 5 years, and this is something I really want to bring up with President Trump, because to me, this is desperate. It's getting to the point now, it's critical. It's DEFCON 1. The Christians of the Middle East will be no more. In other words, there will not be a single Christian left in the Middle East. Now, Christians have been in the Middle East since the time of Jesus. They're going to be literally expunged and wiped out. Who speaks for them? Who champions them? Who defends them? Who protects them? Who arms them? And yet, their voices are silenced. The world doesn't focus on them. And so I'm hoping that Trump will come to their cause, because someone needs to come to their cause. Look, if the Palestinians are smart, happy Columbus Day, everybody. 617-266-6868. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Let's go to Gary in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Gary, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call, Columbus Day. I had a couple of points with this Gaza. I think that the state of Gaza should be the state of Egypt and the state of Jordan, and then they want to be statehood. They can secede from those two countries if they can't make it on their own. And then it would be a responsibility of those surrounding countries to take on some of the peace that Trump's trying to initiate over there. That's my basic thesis. It's been that way.
You know, Gary, look, I got to tell you, it's interesting you should say that, because it's similar to the Trump peace plan. Now, he's not saying to Egypt and Jordan, gobble them up, like just take them, right? But you're going to see he's actually flying now to Egypt, and Netanyahu's with him. And the other Arab leaders are going to be there. Egypt now is coming out and saying, look, we're basically going to guarantee the security of Gaza. We're going to protect its borders. We're going to tell the Palestinians, you don't need a military because we will protect you. But the deal is Hamas has to go. Hamas has to be completely disarmed, and they can have no power whatsoever. None. None, 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 none. And Jordan is going as well, and they're going to say, look, if you want an independent Palestinian state, we're going to underwrite the security of the West Bank. And again, no Hamas. You have to lay down your weapons. So you're not going to have a military. There won't be a Palestinian army, or there'll be police, obviously, but there won't be a Palestinian army or a Palestinian air force or a Palestinian military. You don't need it because we, the Arabs, are going to guarantee your security and your new borders, dependent upon you not attacking Israel anymore. It can't be a base for Hamas or Hezbollah or one of these other Islamic terrorist cells to just keep launching rockets into Israel. Now, Gary, and I'll give you the final word, I promise. Just to show you how perceptive you are, Gary. People forget this, okay? This is like, people think it's ancient history. It's not. In 1948, when Israel is founded, remember, there's a war. There's a war that breaks out in 1948. And the war was over historic Palestine. So what the agreement that was reached by the international community was, the land essentially east of the Jordan River, that's Palestinian or Arab, whatever you want to call it. And the parts that are west are Israeli. So the Arabs got a massive chunk of historic Palestine. Israel got the other chunk of historic Palestine. And do you know which country absorbed historic Palestine from the Arab side? Jordan. So, and a little bit Egypt, but it was primarily Jordan. So, until the 1967 war, for example, the West Bank, Ramallah, that was all that was considered part of Jordan. That was considered Jordanian territory. So this idea that the Palestinians are truly a unique, independent people, that's only something that's arisen in the last 30, 40 years. They are culturally, religiously, ethnically, socially, they're Arabs. Nothing wrong with being an Arab. Arabs are a great people and a great civilization. But I'm saying is, they're Arab. They're as Arab as the Jordanians are. They're as Arab as the Egyptians are. They're Arabs. And so what Trump is really saying is, let the Arabs take care of the Arabs, i.e., let the Jordanians take care of the Palestinians, let the Egyptians take care of the Palestinians, and guys, you deal with them, you police them, you can, you invest with them, you do business with them, as long as they stop being a menace to the entire region and to the world. And so in some ways, we are returning back to 1948. It's like a full circle. Gary, final word to you.
They have a treaty. Egypt has one treaty with Israel as it is, so that should make it much easier for them to be a state of Egypt for a while until they can be their own country. And the same with Jordan. That's my basic idea.
You're dead on. Gary, you're absolutely dead on. And Turkey now is on board. The Saudis are on board. This is huge because they got a lot of money. And Turkey has troops. So what I'm saying is you're right, but you have Qatar, you have the Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, the Gulf sheiks. Syria is now on board. Lebanon is on board. So what Trump has done, and this was the point Netanyahu was making, and frankly the Arabs are making this point, they go, you think we Arabs agree on anything? Amongst ourselves. Never mind agree with the Jews of Israel. He's got us all rowing in the same direction now. Now, can it last? That's a $64,000 question. But Gary, what he has done, it's never been thought possible. Literally, it has never been thought possible. Because he put all the pieces in place for this to happen. Gary, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Okay, just very, very quickly. There's some superb messages that I've gotten. And you can always message the Kuhner man. Now, and they're both from a little bit slightly different directions. Again, but they're both diehard members of Kuhner country. This is from Larry in Arkansas. Jeff, let's not mince words. President Trump's decisive strikes against Iran's nuclear program was like taking down the Goliath of the Middle East. And Hamas said, oh crap, I can't say the word on the air, we're blanked. Okay, we're effed. He broke Iran. And when he broke Iran, when he hit Fordo, when he utterly annihilated and smashed their entire nuclear weapons program and just took the guts out of the Iranian military, Hamas was finished. Because Hamas depended upon Iran and Qatar. Those were their two big backers. And Trump separated Qatar from Hamas, and then he broke the spine of the Iranian mullah regime. And then Hamas was finished. I mean, then the game was up. So, Larry, I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. Very quickly, this is from Marianne. And she's expressing, I would say, the majority, maybe even the super majority sentiment, certainly 60% plus, if I'm going by the poll the poll of the day. And look, she's a realist, and I never like to bet against a realist. But here's what Marianne wrote. Jeff, in my personal opinion, this peace deal is not going to last. Since when do we trust terrorists? You can't negotiate with terrorists. You can't believe anything that terrorists say. It's not going to last. Again, just my opinion. And I don't believe they care whether or not Trump is in power. It's not going to last. In other words, you cannot make peace with a snake. You cannot make peace with Islamic extremists and Islamic terrorists. So Marianne doesn't even think it's going to last the 3 years plus a few months of Trump's term. She thinks it's going to break down even sooner. Interesting. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Look, and since it's Columbus Day, and Trump issued this proclamation that from now on it will be Columbus Day again, going into the future, and the left is going absolutely berserk. And you know me, I believe in Columbus Day. I don't think it ever should have been called Indigenous Peoples Day. Nothing wrong. I'm with Mark in New Hampshire who called earlier. Really, honestly. If we want a separate day for Native American Indians, that's okay. But Columbus Day should always have been and always should be Columbus Day. And this is from Rick. He's a good friend of mine. And this is what he wrote on a message to me, a personal message. Jeff, Columbus was no saint, but it was not his job to be a saint. Now, listen to these examples because he's so right. Neil Armstrong was no saint. Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, George Washington, Martin Luther King Jr., Leif Erikson, they were no saints, but each is celebrated for their courage, their fortitude, and their perseverance. It was not Columbus's intent to destroy American indigenous civilization. Other conquerors chose to do that and did that. But Columbus was on a journey to explore and open up trade routes. Blaming him for those that came after him is like blaming your grandparents for what you've done. It's ignorant and beyond Whiggish. I agree. The only thing I would add, Rick, is, and historians agree on this unanimously, over 90% of the Native American Indians who died in the wake of Columbus discovering the New World did not die from murder or conquest or war or oppression or anything like that. Over 90% of them died from disease. Measles, smallpox. In other words, diseases that were common in Europe, they had no immunity against. And that's what really decimated the Native American population. So even then, to say that the West ushered in or Europe ushered in a genocide is a complete lie. It's a complete fabrication. Completely. This is what Rick wrote as well. Here's to Christopher Columbus, the only illegal immigrant the left ever hated. That's a good one, Rick. 617-266-6868. So let me throw this log on the fire. Do you support Trump's proclamation reinstituting Columbus Day, having it celebrated as Columbus Day, and as Trump put it, a great day of celebration for Americans of Italian descent? Agree, disagree? Dave in Connecticut. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
Not too bad. For starters, I'd just like to say that I am an American, Italian, and Jewish all at the same time.
Wow.
So Elizabeth Warren and Ivana Presley can kiss my tuchus.
Boy, this is, Dave, I mean, this is a big day for you today, my friend.
Anyway, what I wanted to say is that if Trump did not help out in this and take care of this, eventually it would come back to bite America in the rear end. There would be a vacuum of, and who knows who would have filled that. You know, at the end of World War II, George Marshall came up with the Marshall Plan and rebuilt Europe. I guess on a smaller scale, you could say Trump is doing the same thing.
Well, that's a very interesting point, Dave. I didn't look at it from that angle, that perspective. You're right. And with Trump, the point that Trump's really adamant about, he goes, it's not going to be American money. In other words, he got the Saudis to pitch in, the Qataris to pitch in, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the UN, massive reconstruction money is going to come from the Europeans. He's told the Europeans, no, you guys keep going on about Palestine. Okay, pony up. So the overwhelming majority, the overwhelming bulk of the investment money that's going to pour into Gaza to rebuild it is going to be either Arab money, Middle East money, European money, or UN money. So it's not even our money, which is to me very important. Dave, the other thing is this, and I want to know if you agree or disagree on this. What Trump has now done, and I understand they were using it as a pretext, as an excuse, but still, the war was raging. The longer the war raged, the more radicalized in this country the left became. How many protests, violent protests, riots, not just on college campuses, with them wearing the keffiyeh, just in downtown Boston. What was that, last week? They were firebombing cop cars. They sent police officers to the hospital as these pro-Hamas thugs basically took over downtown Boston with their keffiyehs waving the Palestinian flag. So what I'm saying is, by at least ending the war for now, he's cut off all of this fuel, this oxygen that was feeding this radical left, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-Western movement that was like a cancer, not just on college campuses, but across our country. So in a sense, he's now he's drying up some of the fuel that has been driving the radical left. I mean, what, they're going to wear their keffiyehs now? What are you protesting for? The war is over. You wanted the war to end, he ended it. You wanted a free Palestine, he's giving you a free Palestine. You want all the prisoners back, they're all back. Like, what else do you want? So, in a sense, yes, it's giving stability and peace in the Middle East, but it's also going to give peace and stability to some extent here. Am I wrong, Dave?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that that these people will pack it up and go home. But from the ones that I know, they'll just find something else to hate. They'll find another way to hate Jewish people. That's just how it is. Plain and simple. You can't make these people change their minds.
I'm just curious, one of the effects of the war, and I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but, they're celebrating like the war is over. The Israelis are, the Palestinians are, Trump, I can play the cut again. I played it in my opening monologue where he said, no, the war is over. Do you understand? The war is now over. We're now turning a new page, a new chapter. This thing is over. One of the things that we saw in the last 2 years, Dave, in Europe, especially in Europe, in Great Britain, but even here in the United States, is an absolute explosion in anti-Semitism. Just a real hatred for Jews. Something I've never seen with my eyes in my lifetime. Where you have American Jews saying, I don't wear my yarmulke anymore in public, the skull cap. I will not wear a Star of David, a chain around my neck or a necklace or whatever, because I will be attacked, I'll be assaulted, I'll be beaten. God knows what will happen to me or my family. Do you feel that this war, one of its ugly after effects and consequences, was that it unleashed Jew hatred of the kind that really we haven't seen since the 1930s?
Can tell you this much. I think the anti-Semitism, the basis of it was always there. I think over years it has grown, and I think this war just let it rise, to the top, and give these people an excuse to go out in public and really show their hatred, or their anti-Semitism, and also, going hand in hand, their hatred for this country.
I agree with you. I think it's been festering and festering, Dave, and festering. And this war kind of like almost was like a catalyst. And now it just sort of boiled over. All that hatred that was there for 5 years, 10 years, growing over the last 10, 15 years, especially after Obama. To me, there's no question. He was the instigator of all this. It just boiled over. Dave, as someone who's of Jewish descent, do you watch your back more? Are you more aware of your surroundings? Are you afraid to let people know that you're Jewish or have people identify you as being Jewish? In other words, are you now more fearful in public now than you were before the war?
Audience, I've never worn, whether the last time I probably wore a yarmulke was at one of my children's bar mitzvah. I don't wear one in public. I don't wear any jewelry that would say necklace, bracelet, whatever, that I'm Jewish. I don't wear any jewelry at all. And myself, regardless of the fact whether I'm Jewish, I am always aware of my surroundings. That's just how I am.
Interesting. So it has had an effect. I mean, I know people have told me this, but, I've heard many American Jews say, no, whatever. Maybe I wasn't that, I didn't display my Jewishness so much. But now I'm very cognizant, and now I never do it because it's just not worth the risk. Now, that's very telling. That shows you how widespread the anti-Semitism has become. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is very powerful sound. This is an emaciated male Israeli hostage. It's obviously the son of a mother. He's extremely skinny. He's literally skin and bones. 2-year ordeal in the tunnels of Gaza. Malnourished, hardly fed, lucky to be alive. And his mother now sees him for the first time. And she runs up to him. He can barely walk. He's so weak. And the screeching that you hear is from somewhere deep, deep inside of a mother's love and a mother who is so overjoyed because she never thought she would see her son again alive. And she's embracing him and holding him so tight that you almost think, because he's so emaciated, that she's going to break him. It's an incredible, powerful moment. Roll cut 150. Mike. I don't know what she's saying. She's speaking in Hebrew. When you see the video, I'm telling you, you just start to cry. Anybody around the world would start to cry. And she's embracing him and just kissing him and kissing him and kissing him and kissing him. It's an incredible moment. 617-266-6868 is the number. That's Trump. That's MAGA. That's what we do. That's what we do. And while our enemies call us Nazis and fascists and white supremacists and racists, if you can believe it, anti-Semites, everything that comes out of their mouth, this is what we do. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are... All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Mike. Let's go. Who am I going to go to next, Maestro Mike? Tom in Virginia. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
You're welcome, sir. I'd like to thank you for supporting Columbus Day. I think it's these people that want to do away with it. I think it's part of the neo-Marxist movement in our country. They want to destroy our history. I think it's in, Skoson's book, The Naked Communist. He talks about everything that they're doing right now, presently. And I think that if they're really concerned, they need to go out to the reservations in our country, get out on the res, and help out the Native Americans out there. They could use a lot of help out there. I've been out to the Sioux reservations in South Dakota. They need our help. That's what, if you really want to do something, get off your keisters and get out there and go help them out. They could use all the help they can get.
Oh, Tom, you're 1,000, not 100. You're 1,000% correct. But no, these leftists and liberals don't give a damn about Native American Indians. They don't care about the Sioux in South Dakota or the Cheyenne, or I could just go on and name you every tribe under the sun. They don't care. Look at Elizabeth Warren. She literally lied. She doesn't have a freaking ounce of Indian blood in her. Okay? She's not even like, 1/1000th Native American. Zero. Nada. Nothing. And she bamboozled school after school after school, lying, claiming that she was a Cherokee Indian, and then later admitted that she lied. And it's not just that she got all these prestigious jobs, making $350,000 a year to teach one class. It's not even that, Tom. It's that she took the jobs that were literally set aside for real Native American Indians. Forgive me, not to be flippant about it, but, the kind that can own a casino. They do a kind of a test of your ancestry. And it's got to be, what is it, a quarter or a half or whatever. In other words, you have to have real serious Native American Indian heritage, ancestry, Native American blood to be a stakeholder in a casino. So in other words, you know, she took the job, actually jobs, plural, that were set aside for Native American Indians. Now, I'm against affirmative action and racial quotas. Okay, please don't get me wrong, Tom. But if you're going to set them aside for Native American Indians, then for God's sake, at least give them to a real Native American Indian. Okay. I mean, I don't agree, but at least I understand it. But this, they gave it to a woman who has whiter skin than I have. And believe me, Tom, I roast in the sun after 5 minutes with blue eyes and blonde hair. You can't make this up. I'm telling you, you can't make it up. And as for Columbus Day, I'm proud to defend Columbus Day. And I'm proud that Trump issued that proclamation restoring Columbus Day. No Columbus, no America. Can you imagine the world without America? He's one of the greatest heroes in history. In history. And we're going to deny him his rightful place? It's shameful. It's shameful. Tom, final word to you.
You know, I just want to say just thanks, you know, and that's about it for today. I appreciate you very much and all that you do.
I love your accent, Tom. Love that Southern twang. Please call again. Just talk about anything. I'm like that with Southern accents. Like, just, I don't care. Talk to you about the weather. Just talk in that charming Southern accent of yours. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I promise I'm going to get back to the blazing phone lines. But before I do, I just want to let everybody know there is a major rally on October 15th, 2 days from today, this Wednesday, at 12:30 p.m. So basically at lunchtime. It is going to be at the steps of the Boston State House, the Massachusetts State House, on 24 Beacon Street. There's been many rallies that Kuhner Country has held there before. I will not be speaking or attending this rally. However, many members of Kuhner Country will be there. Why? It is to demand that we do a full, complete audit of the Massachusetts State Legislature and all of their spending. Basically, a Massachusetts version of Doge. There was a ballot initiative in the last election that passed by over 70%. 70% demanding an audit. And the corrupt Democrats on Beacon Hill have refused to comply with the will of the voters and, in fact, are obstructing the state auditor, who is a Democrat herself, Diana DiZoglio, from being able to conduct this audit because they're trying to cover up the corruption and the fraud and the waste and the abuse. Well, Diana DiZoglio will be speaking at this rally. So will many Republicans, Democrats, independents. It's going to be a bipartisan rally. I hope all of you can make it. Again, it is this Wednesday, October 15, just 2 days, 12:30 p.m., rain or shine, in downtown Boston at the Massachusetts State House, 24 Beacon Street. If you want to find out more information, go to peoplesstatehouse.com, peoplesstatehouse.com. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to play this cut. This is President Trump, and he is addressing the Knesset, but he's really speaking now also to the Middle East, to the Palestinians, to the Arab states, to the Muslims, and listen to what he says. Roll cut 121, Mike. Okay. The argument that Trump makes in this cut is a very Western argument. It's very rational. It's very logical. It's based on self-interest. It's very civilized. It's an argument that works with almost every European country. Obviously us, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, some countries in Asia, obviously countries in Latin America. Many of them would be nodding their head, saying, this makes a lot of sense to us. The question is, will it make sense to the Iranians? Will it make sense to many of the Islamic terrorists and the Islamic extremists that are all over the Middle East? That's now the question. And so Mike is still having problems with technical issues with the audio. So here's what he essentially said. That it should now be clear to everyone, this is what Trump said, throughout the region, that decades of fomenting terrorism and extremism, jihadism, anti-Semitism, have not worked. From Gaza to Iran, those bitter hatreds have delivered nothing but misery, suffering, failure, and death. And so what he's basically saying is, it no work. That this kind of religious fanaticism, this kind of irrational hatred is primitive, it's barbaric, and he's basically saying, look, use your eyes, look around you. Has it made you richer? Has it made you freer? Has it made you more prosperous? Has it made you safer? Has it made you more secure? Has it made your life or the lives of your children or grandchildren, your region, your country, your community, your neighborhood, has it made it any better? He goes, obviously it hasn't. And so what I'm saying is he's making a practical, enlightened, self-interest, rational argument. And to us, we're all like, yep. But you see, that's Western. That's how the Western mind thinks. And so if you're a Westerner, I don't care what country you're from, but if you have a Western mindset and Western values and Western cultural beliefs, yeah, it's self-evident. It's like, yeah. I don't know. And I'm reacting to many of you who are saying, Jeff, I don't think this deal is going to last very long. Because many of you are very skeptical. Do the mullahs in Iran think like this? No. Does Hamas think like this? No. Does Hezbollah think like this? No. Does ISIS or Al-Qaeda think like this? No. Do many Islamists in power in certain Middle East countries, do they think like this? No. And so that's where this thing could maybe founder. That's where Trump's peace deal, his 20-point peace plan, it may shatter on the rocks of ancient Islamic hatred and militant Islamic radicalism.
It should now be clear to everyone throughout the region that decades of fomenting terrorism and extremism, jihadism and anti-Semitism have not worked. They haven't worked. They've been a disaster. They've just killed. They've killed. They've backfired completely and totally. They've just totally backfired. Everything that you thought, take it worst case, it's turned out to be worse than that. They have not worked. From Gaza to Iran, those bitter hatreds have delivered nothing but misery, suffering, failure, and death.
But what do you do with a religion and a cult that loves death, that celebrates death, that glorifies death, that in fact says, I don't care about your peace and your prosperity and your freedom and a better life for you and your children and grandchildren. I want to die for Allah and get my 72 virgins in heaven. I want to be a martyr. because then I will enter paradise, as they say. That's what he's up against. That's what this peace plan is up against. And only time will tell. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Lou in Milton. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks very much. I listened to you for many years, and I think you're awesome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's a perfect example of what you just said. If you go back to the very beginning, like you were saying before, now King Hussein's grandfather in the 30s and the 40s, he welcomed the Zionist enterprise. He knew that the Jews were going to build a Western state, and there was going to be economic prosperity, and he welcomed this. But guess what? He was assassinated, right? So the only thing I would say, if Trump's plan can provide economic prosperity, that will trump a lot of this old-fashioned hatred, because I do believe most of the Arabs just want to have a better life. I remember once, years ago, there was a pilgrimage somewhere in the Mideast, and there was a boat, and the boat was sinking, okay? And the people on the boat were throwing the people overboard because they didn't want to throw the refrigerators and the televisions overboard. And I thought, wow.
That is fascinating. Lou, that is absolutely fascinating. Wow. 617-266-6868 is the number. Chris in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I woke up to this morning at 7:41 with good news from President Trump. I mean, I'm so happy that the war has ended, and it's finally that Bibi Netanyahu has finally gotten his head off his rear end and ended this war, and it's about time he's done something.
Well, you know, Chris, by the way, as I speak to you now, literally, Trump has finished his address to the Knesset. He's on a plane. He's flying to Egypt. Bibi will be accompanying him. The Egyptians now are going to roll out the red carpet for Trump. In fact, the leader of Egypt insisted, in fact, this is what he told Trump, that it was a matter of Arab pride that, you know, Egypt, speaking on behalf of the Arab world, that Trump had to come to Egypt after addressing the Knesset for such an historic deal, a ceasefire. And he says now that he's going to line up Arab leaders across the Middle East, and that they now are going to achieve not just a permanent peace, but they're going to rebuild Gaza. And they really now say they want to create a two-state solution, which people thought was impossible, and that the Arabs will do their part regarding the Palestinians. And if Bibi will sign on, they believe that they can achieve A, a lasting, durable peace, B, an independent Palestinian state. So, Chris, I kid you not, Trump is now seen as the hero and defender of Israel and the Jews, and maybe, just maybe, as the father of an independent Palestinian state. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but he just did it. And the very people who've been protesting on the streets and on campuses here with their keffiyehs and their genocidal rhetoric and their pure blind hatred, not just for the Jews, but for Trump, now are dumbfounded. They can't speak. It's like somebody cut their tongue out. You know, a cat cut their tongue. They don't know what to say because he's outmaneuvered every single one of them. Chris, I'm telling you, if he can deliver this, I think Ukraine is next. I think Putin, in fact, Zelensky's already come out and said, give us a 20-point plan for Ukraine and Russia. Putin is looking at this, and he's saying, maybe it's time to end this thing in Ukraine. If anybody can bring peace between Russia and Ukraine, it's Trump. And if he does that, no force on earth can prevent him from winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Chris, what say you? Final word to you, my friend.
Do not believe he did not win the Nobel Peace Prize Friday. I hope he wins it next year.
I agree. Well, he should win it. I mean, he has to win it next year. But you're right. They robbed him. Oh, they robbed him. They robbed him blind. But again, I don't want to repeat myself. As I said earlier, the woman that did win it, this Venezuelan anti-communist opposition leader, she's a remarkable woman. And she came out and said, I want you to know Trump should have won the award. She said it. And so I take this award in his honor. And then she went on to really stick it to the Nobel Prize Committee. She said, I want you to know the only reason why I'm here is because of President Trump. He inspired me to oppose the Maduro regime, and he's done more than anyone to put the screws into this authoritarian, dictatorial, communist regime that has caused so much poverty, misery, and oppression in Venezuela. So she literally said, without Trump, there would not be a Venezuelan opposition. So even now, believe it or not, by not winning, he's winning. Because the Venezuelan people are now rallying around Trump. And the world sees that Trump was clearly robbed. No man deserved a peace prize more than him. Chris, thank you very much for that call. All right, let's squeeze one more in. Jack in the great state of Indiana. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I love you in such a way. I hope Ray, Ava, and Ashton are doing well.
Yes, Ava and Ashton, by the way, they're home today. It's Columbus Day, so they have the day off from school, and they're very happy about it.
I just wanted to ask you, number one, why do you think the squad hasn't come out and congratulated President Trump? Number two, how does Ashton and Ava and your wife, how do they see your political? How does Ashton and Ava think about the political future? Are they Democrats or
No. Well, my wife is, conservative like I am. I'd say she's a bit more critical of Trump than I am. She doesn't like his tariffs. I like his tariffs, as an example.